Hi, I'm Tom Stephenson and welcome to Microsoft Project Made Easy. Today we're going to be talking about calendars. I've discussed calendars in previous videos, but today I want to kind of focus in on a certain part of the calendars, which is if you have irregular hours. I'm going to give a little bit of a review about calendars period, but I want to get into irregular hours. Typical hours in a day is 8 hours a day. We'll try something a little bit different. Maybe we'll try like 9.5 hours a day. Maybe you're like a landscaping company and you work longer hours during the summer and you don't work as much during the winter. So you have a project where you know you're going to be typically working 9.5 hours a day. What will that look like? So what would we do? Where do we go? Well, for calendars, we go up to the project tab, right? And it's best to set the calendar right off the get-go before you've got things already added to it, because it can kind of distort things and mess things up a little bit if you don't do that. So I would go to the project tab. I would go to change working times. That's where we fix our calendars. And normally I would go through, well, how do you put in, exceptions, holidays, and things like that. We have a holiday coming up in a couple of days. So maybe I'll just quickly show you, if you want to insert like Good Friday into the schedule, you click on it. Under the exceptions tab, you would put in Good Friday. And if you click on the Start tab, it will hatch that out similar to this as a non-working day. You click over here. If I click OK, it should show up on my calendar. So you could see how that's hatched there, right? So I know what was accepted. And as I've said in other videos, usually what I would do is I'd put all the holidays in for a number of years, and then I'd have that set, and I'd use this as a template start point file, so I don't ever have to do that part of it again. Which is important. That way you don't waste a lot of time. So it's good to kind of set up a blank file that's got how you typically handle your holidays. In the descriptions, I'll put some links to the other calendar videos that I've done so that you can go back and look at them if you want more detailed information on that aspect. Now, I also would say that if it's something that's got to do with the whole calendar, then I would go to where it is work weeks, and under default you can go into details, and you'll see under details it lists the day of the week, of course, and then it's use default times. Well, default times are exactly this: 8 to 12, 1 to 5. So it's basically an 8-hour day. Now, unless you're really getting into micro managing certain projects, you really are concerned about how many days or how many hours are we working in a day typically. And so we'd want to set it for that. So this is basically an 8-hour working day. Doesn't really matter whether it would say 8 to 12 and 1 to 5, or if it just said 8 to 4. Even though you maybe take a half an hour lunch and you finish at 4:30, it would be okay because it would still only count 8 hours. And for the most part, that's what we're after. So let's say instead of working 8 hours in a day, I plan to work 9.5 hours. All right. So maybe I want to put this from say 7 a.m. So I'm going to set days to these specific times, and I'm just going to say 7. And I think if I just hit tab, it puts a.m. So that's already got that put in for me. 7 a.m. And maybe I'm going to put till, well, that'd be 5 hours up to noon, another 4.5 hours to 4:30. So I'm going to put 4:30, and I'll put p.m. right? And then I'll just jump out to here, right? Now I'm setting days, but the big thing here is I want to set all of these. So I should have highlighted that first. That would have been a little bit easier, right? So should have highlighted that down first. And I'm going to do that again. I'm going to put in here, I'm going to set days to these specific times. I'm just going to click on that row. I'm going to delete that row. And I'll do that again. 7. And if I go click tab, it'll put 7 a.m., the tab key on my keyboard. And then I'm going to put 4:30 p.m. And I'm going to click OK. Now you should watch this up here when I do that. So I'm going to click OK. And you see how it says 7 a.m. to 4:30. So that's 9.5 hours. And if I click over here, 9.5, 9.5, 9.5, everywhere it's 9.5. On Sunday, it kept that. Remember, I made it earlier, 7 a.m. to 4:30. If I wanted to work every Sunday, that's what I should do. So if you ever wanted to work every Saturday or that, I should have clicked that and changed it to that aspect. But you know what? I made a mistake with that. I actually want to go back, and I'm just going to go where it says Sunday, and I'm going to say use project default times, and default times is non-working. So you see it's hatched out again. So we're good. We're back to normal. All right. So we have now our 9.5 hour schedule. Doesn't take unless I click OK. So I click OK. Nothing has changed yet, right? But I do want to emphasize one more thing here that we need to do. And this is what's always forgotten. I want to go to File, and this is important, Options. And if you're going to change your calendar to 9.5 hours, you should set your options so that it matches it. So Project Options, I'm going to go to Schedule. And you see where it says default start time 8 a.m. I'm going to make that 7 a.m. and I'm going to make that, what did I have? I had 4:30 p.m., right? So I'm going to go down to 4:30 p.m. So I clicked on schedule, don't forget that. And so hours per day, right? So I'm going to go in there and I'm going to type in 9.5 hours per day, right? And so 9.5 hours per day is how many hours per week? So we've got 9.5 and we're going to do it 5 days a week. So that, I believe, if I do that in my head, is 47.5 hours a week. You know, if it was 10 hours a day and it's 5 days a week, it would be 50 hours. So you want to make it correspond with whatever it is. And this is why it's simpler not to put the lunchtime period in the other calendar, just to run it straight through when you're doing a special calendar like this. So we've got that. I'm going to leave it at 20 days per month, so it's really in balance with the weeks. It probably works out different, but we don't usually schedule by the month too much anyway, so it really won't impact us that way. But I do have 9.5 hours per day. I've said when we start, I've said when we finish. It adds up to 9.5, and I've got the 47 hours per week. I'm going to click OK. So now they match up. So I'm going to enter a few tasks just so that you can see how it works. And of course, we don't want to have it in manual mode. I want to put it in auto schedule. I'm going to go to the bottom left. I'm going to go to auto schedule. I'm going to go to task 2. Just putting in very simple stuff just so that you can follow along. And you could try this on your own computer at the same time if you want. I'm going to keep it very simple here, right? And so we've got that there. And I'm going to also, I'll put in some durations here. So I'm going to put, let's see, 5 days, 6 days, 7 days, 6 days, 5 days, 4 days. There we go. And let's put in some predecessors. So I'll just highlight all of these one after the other. I'll go to the task tab. I'll click the link icon. So I just click the link icon. Now they're all one after the other. Maybe I'll shrink it a little bit so you can see it. I usually double click the time scale and then I can shrink it. See how it's at 100%? I usually bring it down to around 50%. And now I can see still my days, but you can see what's going on, at least on your screen. And so I've got the predecessors. Maybe I'll have a couple of them start at the same time. And I'll link this up with here. So I'm going to put in 3, 4. There we have that. And maybe I'm going to, well, maybe I'll do this afterwards just to show you some stuff. All right, so we've got that roughly set up. I'd like to see the critical path. So I'm going to go up to Format, Critical Tasks, and now I can see the critical path on there. So that's great. I'm going to slide to the left. This is how I like to switch screens. I usually slide to the left, right click, and then I get a source of tables. I also click the square icon box to move between these tables. Right now I'm after the resource sheet, so I right click, go down the resource sheet. And in my resource sheet, maybe I'll create a few resources, right? So I'll say laborers and carpenters, and maybe I'll add in a subcontractor. So maybe I'll say ABC Plumbing as an example, and maybe I'll say paving brick. We mentioned landscapers, so let's keep with that. And so just to give you some different types of resources while I'm at it, just a quick overview of this. I keep these as work. Maybe I'll put them something that we can easily do in our head as I add them, so you can see how it actually adds up. So we'll go $100 an hour, burdened rate, holidays, all, workers' compensation, all those things added in. Plumbing, I'm going to make a cost, like it's a subcontractor, and paving brick, I'm going to make it a material, because we're going to do that by the square foot. There we go. So we've got that, and maybe we'll make it $10 a square foot there. Okay, and I'm not going to make this too much about resources, but we just added a few here. Yeah, again, I'll put some links. You can go to my playlist, and if you click subscribe, you'll see I have a playlist on Microsoft Project Made Easy, which has a lot of different videos on different topics. I also have Microsoft Project for Beginners, which kind of just goes very methodically slow that you can sort of follow along. And then I have sort of the cut to the chase 9 videos that you can really sort of get the fundamentals of Microsoft Project down on. All right, so having created this, I'm going to slide to the left. I'm going to go back to my Gantt chart, and I'm going to apply some resources. And there's a lot of ways to apply resources. I'm just going to do the way I usually like, which is the resource tab, assign resources. Some people like to split the screen and do different things. I'm going to, particularly, I want to actually pay attention to the carpenters and laborers on this. So I'm going to assign the carpenters to this task. I'm going to assign the laborers to this task, and let's see, we'll just show you the other ones. The plumbers, ABC Plumbing. I'm going to say that there's ABC Plumbing on this particular task. I'm going to assign them. I'm trying to remember if I created them. Oh yeah, there you go. ABC Plumbing. I'm going to put a cost for them. So maybe I say $5,000. Excuse me. I'm going to then go and I'm going to click on paving brick perhaps for task 5, just to show you how you can assign different things. And maybe I'll say 2,000 square feet. So if I just press enter, it does the square feet because I put square feet beside it in the resource table, and I think I said $10 a square foot, so that's why it's $20,000. So that's all added on to it, just showing you quickly how this can be. So once I've got that set up, I'm going to go to the resource area, like the left of the screen, the Gantt chart. I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to resource usage. And under resource usage, I should be able to see the different resources and which tasks they're assigned to. And I should be able to see the number of hours that are being worked. And so I think we had down for task 2, I think we had down 6 days. I think for task 1, we had 5 days, which would have been Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So hence there should be 47.5 hours being worked, which is what it says. So if we wanted to see the cost, we could actually see the cost here. If I actually right click in this area of work, where you see there, you can add a cost row, and then you can see the cost per day. Remember, we made it $100 a day, so it's very easy to calculate. So 9.5 times 100, $950. Just so it's visual for this video that way. So now we've set our days for 9.5 hours per day. So every time we add a day and we assign somebody that's an hourly worker that's listed as work, then it will do that multiplication at 9.5 hours. If you don't do that and you're working 9.5 hour days, it's just going to calculate it out at 8 hours. So that's why we're doing this, right? If you're doing a cost loaded schedule, then it can reflect the amount of hours that the individual is working. Now, if you only have somebody that is, one of the trades, maybe your carpenters are working 9.5 and everybody else is working 8. Well, you could get around that by, in the change working time, you could create a new calendar, and in that new calendar do the same thing, maybe call it carpenters, and then assign that calendar to that actual resource, and then it will count them at 9.5 hours per day. And so what happens is, in the resource sheet, you can assign that individual. So where you've got over here, you've got laborers, right? It says calendar. If you created a special one, say called carpenters, it would be listed here. And if it was 9.5 hours, you assign that. Whenever you've assigned that laborer there, they're going to work 9.5 hours per day. So that's how you can get around that for individuals. But the important thing is, well, we've set it now for 9.5 hours, so it's calculating that. And our project by default, if I enter a new task, right? So if I enter a new task 7, and I go that this is going to be, say, for example, 3 days. Well, that 3 days is going to be 3 times 9.5, so it's going to be 28.5 hours. And if I actually link it up to, say, number 6 here, and I put a negative lag, so I can just, double click on the line of the arrow, and that will bring up the task dependency box, and maybe I put -1 day, click OK. That's overlapped it and minused it by 1 day. You know what? If you didn't do what I just did and showed you, where we went into the file and we went into options, that's where it gets messed up, right? Like if you left this at 8 hours and you do -1 day, it minuses 8 hours, right? But if you're working 9.5 hours a day, it's going to give you all these skewed numbers and can drive you a little bit bonkers. So that's why we do this, so that this is in sync with your calendar that you created that way. So when I do -1 day, it's doing -9.5 working hours on that day, not -8 hours, which it would if you never did that adjustment. Okay, so we've added these resources, we put them into place, and just to do a couple of double checks here, let's go to the cost screen. We can see in the cost screen here $4,750. So that is, the carpenter is working 5 days, so that's going to be, right, that's going to be 5 times 9.5 times 9.5, right? And that equals 47.5. And then we're going to multiply that 47.5 times 100. That gives us a $4,750. So we see that things are working the way that they're supposed to work when we created this special calendar that way. And that's how you do it. That's the big thing with this, is to make sure that you set this at the, if it's 9.5 or 10 or 11, whatever it is, that you also, if that's your standard for everything, then you also go into the options and you set that at the same amount. That way, when you are doing lags and things like that, and you've assigned resources, it won't get out of whack. It'll stay in sync. So that's what I wanted to cover in today's session. If you enjoyed this session, please leave a comment, or if you have more questions in this, I did this session actually based on some comments that some YouTubers were asking me about special hours and that sort of thing. So please click subscribe and the notifications. I've got a lot of things on construction management, and Microsoft project on my YouTube channel and playlists, and let's grow this community together. I'm Tom Stephenson, wishing you a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.